Hey, everyone, and welcome to the In-House Podcast where Tastemaker Fashion goes digital. And today we're joined by Daniel Patrick. You know him as the mastermind behind the eponymous Daniel Patrick brand and as the outfitter of some of the biggest names in sports and music. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Of course. So we're super excited to have you on the show because Daniel Patrick was an early addition to the In-House platform, and we're forever grateful for that. And for the people listening who don't know, 2022 actually marks a decade of the Daniel Patrick brand, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly. Yeah, we just celebrated our 10 years, so it's been a long journey, but I feel like there's a lot more to go.
For sure.
I mean, as with all great stories, that's not how it started. You were going to follow, I believe, in your father's footsteps, become a professional athlete, but you found
Yeah.
yourself enrolling in fashion school. And so when did you start to feel like you were gravitating towards fashion? When was that realization for you?
So I was, like you said, I was going towards the athlete arena, I guess, career path. So I was just always interested in fashion, clothing, and how I dressed outside of the sport. And I think back in those days in Australia, it wasn't necessarily like you didn't really care too much about what you wore, and I did. So I was a bit of an outlier in that sense. But then I just enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it more than I realized I enjoyed it more than I did playing the game, which was rugby league. And then I just decided that it was something that I wanted to do instead. So yeah.
Yeah, of course. And, your love of sports, I'm not just playing sports, but love of sports in general really informs a lot about your brand. In addition to that, obviously hip hop, nature, a lot of themes that kind of run through everything.
Yeah.
You've talked a lot previously about how you're really inspired by music. Who is really inspiring you in music today, and how does that kind of translate into your clothing?
I've always been a lot into Kanye West, his music, and um, over the years, I've just kind of gravitated towards his music. And but yeah, I like Drake. I like Travis Scott. Yeah, I don't know if I have a lot of influence in my clothes from the music, but I don't know, it definitely inspires me, to move forward and in life. I don't know, when you're working out, what do? You put some music on that inspires you to push you through, and it's the same with everyday life.
Yeah. And so is that true? I mean, you say like working out and stuff like that. Is it true when you're in the studio working on collections as well? You have the music going and you're really getting in the zone?
I actually like silence when that's happening because I don't know. I don't need that noise in the background sometimes, and I actually find myself a lot less playing music in my car these days than I used to, and I just enjoy the silence, and I just gather my thoughts, most of the time. I'm either making phone calls or I just like to have a nice silent solitude drive.
I actually found myself recently graduating out of listening to music in my car. Like I drove today 2.5 hours and didn't
Yeah.
listen to any music. I was literally listening to the wind, and I was like, "What? Who am I now? I like this.
Yeah. It's
It's
kind of
new
nice.
me."
I don't know. I guess
It is kind of nice.
yeah, maybe we're getting
Until
older, I guess.
it's nice until you hear the pothole, and then you're like, "That wasn't as nice as listening to like Jay-Z on blast."
Yeah,
Because I
exactly.
missed the pot. Yeah. But fashion, sports, music, they're all so intertwined. And obviously you've collaborated with some top tier talents, including, for example, James Harden. When was that moment, as your brand is blowing up and you're starting to see yourself really be featured out there? When was that moment when you're like, all right, shit, like I'm making it here. Like this is incredible.
I don't know if it's been like one specific moment. It's kind of been, I guess, moments over time. So yeah, I think it's gradual. And I was talking to someone about this yesterday, and he was talking about, like how revered I am in Australia and New Zealand, and just for someone coming over here and making it. And I just said to him, I was like, I don't like. He kind of gets the idea that I don't think much of it, but I think it's the fact that I don't like to think much of it because I think I have so much further to go. And if I start to think too much of what I have done, it stops me from creating, the future. And, you get complacent and you lose that humility that kind of got you there. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
No, 100%. And, always looking to the future is super important. But the juxtaposition is that a lot of your clothing is also informed and inspired by 1990s nostalgia. And it's very obvious in the clothes, in kind of your mood boarding and everything we've seen. I was actually just reading a book about the 90s, appropriately called The 90s. And it basically is arguing it's the most consequential decade of the modern world, essentially, because you see this huge shift in really culture and behavior. So to you, really, what do you associate most with that decade? Like, what about the 90s really draws you in?
I guess it's my childhood, and that's like, I think when you're a kid, you dream your dreams are kind of endless. You think like you're going to be a pro athlete, you're going to live in mansions, and you're going to have all these cool things. And I think, I don't know, I guess it just is nostalgic for myself, from my upbringing, and the things that I was into. And yeah, I guess I like to keep that same mentality as like a kid, like creating the future and dreaming big, and not kind of looking to settle for less. Yeah.
100%. And
Yeah.
you speaking of dreaming big, and we've seen pictures of the studio and everything. You have coffee table books of Issey Miyake and YSL and Ralph Lauren and all these others. You're really worshiping at the altar of some of the greats. You know why are they so iconic, and who do you feel yourself being really inspired by now?
Mhm.
Um, Another conversation I had yesterday on this is I actually probably have more interest outside of fashion in interior design. So I kind of consume a lot more interior design.
Sure.
Yeah, more interior design books and I guess architectural digest than I do fashion stuff, to be honest with you. But in terms of fashion, I like Ralph Lauren and I like the way that he's created a lifestyle brand. And that's kind of how I want to go about my brand, is creating a lifestyle brand with my aesthetics. And, I'm also a fan of Rick Owens and, what he's done. Yeah, I feel like yeah, that's kind of the two fashion heroes that I have. Yeah.
And yeah, those are good ones to have. And something that we're going to talk about a little later, but I think ties in nicely, is kind of mention this focus on architecture and home goods. We've seen the pictures on the site of you at the Daniel Patrick pillows. You post a lot of inspiration
Yeah.
about whether it's candles or soaps or other things that are really kind of very tactile experiences that people have in their everyday lives. Should we be expecting some Daniel Patrick home goods coming soon?
I
Is
would
that on
love
the
that,
horizon?
actually.
Because
Oh yeah.
because Rob's setting up his apartment now. I think he could probably
I'm
use some.
setting up the crib. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I think it's a natural extension, and with the shop we kind of have that opportunity to do our, like, what the brand looks and feels like in a physical sense, and that comes a lot from the interior design aspects that I talk about, that I'm kind of inspired by. And yeah, basically for me, I want to create the lifestyle brand, like I said, and that comes the things that I'm working on right now. I'm working on candles, and then I'm also working on a perfume, which would be unisex, and skincare is another area that we're working on as well. So, kind of like tiptoeing in that direction, if you will. Yeah.
Well,
For sure.
excited to see that, and that is a natural progression. And I think it kind of brings up an interesting point, right? Because dwelling on the past is hard not to do, right? Like your what you've done in the past and how you've built what you've built. And I think that as startups and anything in general, when you're creating something, your focus is so lasered on the future. But sometimes, and we discussed a little earlier in the podcast, but sometimes you do kind of find yourself sitting down and recognizing some of the triumphs of what you've accomplished. And I guess the question for the audience here is really, when was that first feeling, and what was that experience like? That just that first feeling of, hey, like I just did that. And
seeing the product on the street, having someone stop by the store.
Exactly.
That really just gave you that first
not
jolt.
even about like the people who were wearing it, because obviously people love your stuff. That's a given. But it's just about you personally, whatever motivates you. What was that experience like?
Like I said, I think early on I was so focused on the future that I forgot to enjoy the journey as much. But now, as I've gotten older, I'm not like that old, but I've just you start when you mature a little more, you start to, I guess, appreciate what you have done and where you have come from, and live in the present as well as creating the future. And that I like to balance those three things: past, present, and future. And if I can achieve that, then I feel I'm much happier.
Not the easiest thing to do. Right?
Not no by any means. A lot of people live in the past, and that's affects them. I don't know, to be in the present. You know what I mean? And
Of course.
living in the future, I guess too. You kind of, like I said, you don't really enjoy where you are going, like the journey, because that happiness lies in the journey. When you get to the destination, it's kind of a euphoric moment, and then it's depressing because then that goal is done and gone, and now you've been striving towards that, and you need to kind of focus on a new goal. But yeah, I mean, to touch on that, I had another conversation with a friend of mine from Australia who came over, and I just noticed being in the store that a lot of people love a lot of the products that we've created over the years. And some people might like this era and some people might like this era, and they like the new stuff, but they would buy the old stuff like all day. And a lot of brands and designers, I guess, for them that becomes like, oh yeah, they don't like that anymore. But I think we've made so many hits. It's like going to a concert to your favorite artist, and they only play their new album. They don't play the hits that you kind of grew up on or that brought you there. So I feel like that's one thing that I'm working on right now, is bringing out more of those hits that we've had in the past, like the gym shorts. We have one color of them now. We used to make like 10, 15 colors, and Justin Bieber made them famous, and they blew up in China as a result. And I think we need to have those pieces as a staple piece. It's like Ralph Lauren, if he stopped doing the polo shirt, he just would not, like, maybe he doesn't like the polo shirt anymore, but he still makes it, and he still makes it in a ton of new colors.
Yeah, iterations all the time with the polo shirt. I was in a Ralph Lauren for the first time in a while. I'm a huge fan of the brand, and I was getting a polo shirt for my brother's birthday. And I mean, they just came out with totally new models, and they look totally different. The horse is different. It's more realistic. And I was like, damn, I didn't even notice that or like remember that. It's interesting to see fashion and how it changes yet remains the same at the same time. It's interesting.
Got to play the classics, but have to evolve too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can evolve the classics too. It doesn't have to just stay the same, because if you look at it, when I made those products like 5-6 years ago, I feel like my knowledge of making products has evolved and grown in 6 years. So small details can improve that product.
Absolutely. And, someone who is, you talk about past, present, and future. Someone who's been there for you, past, present, and future, is Jenny, who's not just your partner, but also the CEO of the business. What's it like collaborating with your partner? Obviously, she's behind the scenes making things happen, but what's that working relationship like? I'm sure it's really, really rewarding, or you wouldn't be doing it.
I think it's vital. And I think a lot of things fall on Jenny's plate more than it should. But without Jenny, I don't think this thing kind of sits where it is today, because I think a lot of things that creatives are good at, and they're not, they're good at being the visionary and coming up with the future, but they're not necessarily always as good as managing that and bringing it to life, in a sense,
Yeah.
in a business sense. And I think that's kind of where we kind of have a successful relationship working wise as well as personal. But is that those two aspects are important in the business, and I think we realized that early on that's what we were lacking, or I was lacking, because she was working in another industry. So she decided to come and help me full time, and together we've kind of expanded and grown from there.
That's awesome. And you have kids. And kids are always interesting because they change your mindset a lot. That's something my dad always would say to me. How has that affected business in any way, in your mind?
I think it's taken the focus off the business a little bit over the time, but I think also it's a positive, it's a positive thing to kind of step away from what you're doing so much, to not be so consumed in it, and to have those other games, and to, I think it's just an expansion or an extension of you as a person, and to kind of take care of somebody else. And I think as a parent, you grow to kind of, I guess, be a little less selfish in life. I don't know if that makes sense, but because
sure,
you basically had monopoly of your time before, in a sense, and then now you don't have that same freedom. But at the same time, when I get that freedom of time back, then it feels odd to me now. So I just, you can't really, I would never go back, in that sense.
Yeah, well, you're used to being a busy guy, so hopefully it's continuing to fulfill you. So we want to switch gears a little bit here now, move to a segment we call Fit Check. This is where we pull some old photos of you, get a little rundown on what's happening in the pictures. So we're going to have Ryan, our producer, go ahead and pull these up right now. There we go. So in this first one, we got the magazine shoot. This is a very textbook Daniel Patrick look, from, the bright pink sweats to the nature inspired tee. Can't forget, the Rolex on the wrist. What's going on in this picture?
I think you pretty much nailed it right there.
No, we like this because it's very, evocative of what your brand is most known for.
Yeah, I like color, and I think that's kind of, maybe that's the Ralph Lauren influence. I don't know, but it's just, I think color is something that, I don't know. I think it's just something that's become iconic with our brand, the use of color and the colors that we do use. And that pink is inspired by California wildflowers that you see them bloom on the side of the freeways here in LA. And I just I'd always see them, and I'm just like, that's so beautiful. And even though you're just driving down an LA freeway that's full of cars and smog, and to notice that beauty, it's just, that's kind of where that was inspired by. And I enjoy driving out to pick up my kids and seeing the mountain views, and that's where the inspiration for the tee comes from. Obviously, basketball is a big part of my life. My son wants to play in the NBA, and then we obviously dress a lot of NBA players, and so that's that fit.
Love that.
I mean, I'll tell you one thing: driving down New York City, You don't
No
get this. You
wildflowers.
don't get the same wildflower experience. I'm telling you that right
Don't have
now.
any wildflowers in Queens?
Not many, but we do have trash piles, which are motivating in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I mean, we have those too, but then next to it will be some nice wildflowers. So you kind of like,
Yeah. I mean,
you're
my
inspired by the
fiance
beauty.
went. My fiance went to UCLA, and so she's like, she's from New York, but she's got a huge LA heart now. So
Yeah.
I'm constantly getting that. Hey, LA's just got the best nature. We can go on hikes, and I'm like, that does actually sound kind of appealing, But in the second pick here, look, it's a competitive landscape, the mirror pick landscape. We've got a lot of players in it, but you have kind of crowned yourself as a staple in it. And so how does the mirror pick kind of work its way into your stylistic point of view when it comes to posting a photo? Like, is this, like a method for you?
It's a method to sell clothes.
There it is. I mean, fair enough. Fair enough.
But it's just also I don't necessarily do it to sell the clothes first and foremost. I think and that's kind of a byproduct of a good fit is the sales, First and foremost, I like to put together a good outfit that looks good and just for myself, and when I post it, then kind of inspire others or show others how the clothes can be worn too, because sometimes you might not kind of like, I like that, but how do I put it together? And I'm like, well, this is how I wear it. Yeah. So
it's like a guidance almost. It's a guidance tool for people that are trying to break into maybe something that's new for them.
Yeah, it's a lookbook as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So something you said just a little bit ago that I want to dig into a bit deeper. You said how Daniel Patrick as a brand is known for these really bold and quite, deep catalogs of these color palettes. And in addition to that, you tackle basics in a way that a lot of people don't. You have this huge catalog of colors and garments. Why is nailing down those staple garments something that other designers shy away from?
For basics, you mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. Maybe they find it not as I don't know, artistically inspiring to them to work on products that are so simple. But I always kind of believe that artistry is in the simplicity of things. And
yeah, I totally feel that.
And I think that good basics are the foundation of a wardrobe, and all the fits that I have, it's like you have a basic tee underneath, or you have the sweats, with the rest of the outfit. So I think, or if you layered your hoodie underneath your jacket or something like that, I think they make the outfit. And yeah, maybe they're not the most exciting items to kind of design, but I think they're very important to a good wardrobe. And yeah,
I think that makes a ton of sense. We've covered it a bit. You do work with professional athletes that a lot of people look up to. And most of the time, the people that are looking up to them don't know a lot about them. So it'd be really fun to hear, who's someone that's really fun to be around, that when they come to the studio or when they come into the shop, who's someone, I guess, that you have a good time with?
I always enjoy interacting with James Harden. He's a good guy. I haven't had a ton of interactions with him, but the times that we do, he's a good guy, and is very much respectful, and I guess gives me props and makes me feel it makes me feel good. So yeah, I like that.
There awesome. You go. Perfect friendship. And speaking of hoopers, actually, Patty Mills, Josh Giddey, Matisse Thybulle, Ben Simmons, Dyson Daniels. It seems like Aussies are taking over the league right now. Do you feel some national pride for the kind of wave of Australians who are making their impact on the NBA?
Yeah, I do. I like to see that, because I also noticed that the league in Australia is getting stronger as well. And
yeah, absolutely.
I was actually looking at it the other day, and sport in Australia is a little bit different to sport in America in the sense of how much people get paid. And I guess that's to do with the economics of it, because, NBA is a global sport. They have a global audience, but sports like rugby and stuff like that, they're more localized. And Yeah, so I was looking at it, and they were showing it on a pay rate, and some of what the players are getting paid down there are parity to the other pro sports that are probably considered more popular sports. So that's a good indication of how much it's growing. And I heard like a lot of these games are getting sold out too, and that's also interesting. And you see it in the excitement with it, with LaMelo Ball going down there, and I think there's some other guys that went down there to avoid going to college. I guess you go pro one season and then you can enter the draft. Yeah. So I was kind of I think that's good for the NBL. It's called, but I think they're changing that rule now where you can go straight out of high school. I think maybe next year or the year after or something. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it's super. We're big basketball fans. It's obviously super cool to see a lot more representation across a ton of different countries. So glad we could get your take on that.
Yeah, I think there's always been a handful of Aussies growing up that were kind of dipping their toe into the NBA and always the Olympics. I would always watch the team play, and you'd have guys that get showcased for the NBA. And yeah, I don't know. It's good to see more and more of that, and hopefully that there can be more Australian players down the line too.
Absolutely. So last segment we want to go to here is called Spin the Wheel, where we've pulled some topics that we're excited to get some hot takes from you on, kind of relate to your life, your experiences. So we have Ryan pulling this up here. Ryan, give it a spin. What do we got here?
Aussie slang.
Aussie slang. Okay. Well, I mean, look, I think you could teach us more slang than we could teach you, especially if it's Aussie slang. So what are some of your go-tos, that you just kind of whip out sometimes?
The Savo. I don't know. Do you know what that means?
Okay. No.
Nope.
We're learning. This is a learning experience.
So if you say the Savo, it's almost one word, the Savo, but it means this afternoon. Yeah. I don't know.
Okay, I like that. Our producer Ryan, actually, when he was picking this out, he pointed that out to us, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Ryan.
Yeah, I think the extent of our Aussie slang is pretty rudimentary. But we have, we know bogan. It's like your version of rednecks, I think.
Yeah, that's a bogan. Yeah. I'm just more looking at what I use on a daily basis. I guess I try to kind of tone it down as well, though. So
that's fair.
Yeah, but g'day's obviously, everyone knows that one.
Textbook.
I actually did a reel when I was in Sydney a few months ago, kind of saying how we say McDonald's in Australia. You say Macca's.
Macca's. I actually knew that.
Yeah, we're actually very familiar with that one. We have
a good friend of ours is Australian, and he lets that one rip a decent amount.
I even heard that McDonald's in Australia wanted to change their name to officially be Macca's, and I don't know if that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think it didn't eventuate yet, but that would be interesting.
I'll sign the petition.
Yeah, I'll sign the petition too. I bet you it's better there than here anyway.
It is a lot better. I think it's better in every other country.
Yeah, it's literally better everywhere else. Well, we're the ones that are getting kind of screwed.
Yeah.
Well, we don't.
You ever saw Pulp Fiction?
Yeah, of course.
And then you talk about like he went over to Europe and he got he's like, I got a quarter pounder with cheese, but they don't call it a quarter pounder with cheese. They call it a Royale with cheese.
Royale.
And I went over there on a trip and I made that mistake and I ordered something and I'm like, where's the rest of the burger? And I totally forgot the Royale with cheese is what I should have ordered. But anyway.
There you go. It's the linguistics of McDonald's.
Exactly.
Ryan, you want to give us another twirl here?
Yeah, let's get another spin going.
What are we going to land on here? I know what I want.
I know what I want too. Jewelry. So this one, is super interesting for us because, you're a big fan of jewelry. Obviously, more and more men are wearing more jewelry, whether it's, rings, necklaces, whatever. We've seen the teasers on Instagram of, some of the Daniel Patrick jewelry coming. I think it's a necklace.
right here.
What do you guys?
I think it's
oh,
on.
there you go.
Yeah,
And yeah,
I
you're
was
wearing
gonna
it
say
for.
that. It looks like it's being sported as we speak.
There you go.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's watching on YouTube, you can see that as well. But give us a little rundown on where you're headed with jewelry and why it's important.
I guess where I'm heading with it. Well, I kind of want to make stuff that I want to wear, and instead of wearing other people's stuff, I'd rather have my own stuff. And then instead of it being, a Cuban link chain that everybody is familiar with and has done, I want to do something in that vein, but something that hasn't been done. So we did the Chevron link chain, which is it was inspired by Chevron flooring, actually, in the the Chevron wooden flooring in like a Parisian apartment.
Yeah, of course.
So that's another leaning in on my interior design kind of inspiration there. But yeah, it came out really good, and I'm pretty pleased with that. But in terms of other jewelry, I think we could do like a bracelet version of this, and I usually wear a pinky ring. I like to I don't know, it's just something that's kind of standard for me.
Takes confidence.
Yeah,
It takes confidence to rock the pinky ring. I'll be
does?
honest. I've tried
Okay.
it before.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe that's just an us thing.
Yeah. I think for me, jewelry just kind of sets the outfit, like finishes it off, like basics are the foundation, and jewelry is like just tops it off, it's I guess the cherry on top.
Exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah.
But there's one thing on the spin the wheel that I got to ask you about, just because I have to know.
Is it what I think?
It's what you
It's
think
what I
it
think?
is.
Okay, cool.
You are a big car guy. You've posted inspiration of Ferrari Testarossas and Teslas and all this, but you are in love, it seems, with your Land Rover Defender.
Yeah.
Obviously an iconic car. You have one of the newer models. Why is the Land Rover Defender the go-to?
I think because there's a lot to it that I love, because it's part luxury, part rugged, and I kind of feel that I'm part luxury, part rugged in a sense.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I feel like it's the perfect combination of nostalgia and the future, and that's kind of how I designed too. And that, so I just love the boxy kind of shape of it too, and yeah.
It's an interesting car for sure. Do you have the ladder on it?
I don't have the ladder. Yeah.
Every time I'm driving and I see a Defender, and I just think to myself, like, wow, if this guy turns right now, he owns the street. Like, this guy does not need to use a blinker. This guy's running the show.
They're big cars, and they look bigger in person. Well, than they look on a picture, and they're actually bringing out a bigger version of it now too, with a 130. So
okay, that's interesting.
Ginormous.
There you go. Maybe we'll get the Daniel Patrick collab with Land Rover.
That'd be
Maybe
awesome.
That's the next one.
That'd be awesome.
Kith has BMW. Daniel Patrick can have Land Rover.
I mean, I would love that. I would love to have. Remember the Eddie Bauer edition of?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The Ford Expedition, Eddie Bauer
Eddie-
edition.
Yeah.
Yeah. So originally, when Bronco was coming out with that, I had a friend that had some connections with Ford, and I was like, we should pitch him doing like the Daniel Patrick edition of the new Bronco as kind of like the Eddie Bauer edition.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that coming to life.
Actually, that's really interesting. I know we're about to wrap, but the idea that fashion and cars is really stepping up, like you're seeing a lot of people get more involved in that. You're seeing limited edition. I mean, Drake chrome hearted out his Cullinan or his GLS. I don't remember which one. I mean, it's interesting to see these, like the Kith car.
Yeah. Even like Only New York, which has a storefront in Greenpoint. They have I think it's actually a Defender too. So maybe it's a streetwear thing. But they have some custom branding on that as well, though I don't think it was an official collab.
I want a Daniel Patrick custom car.
Yeah, put us on the list for when that happens.
Put us on the list. We're on.
CP Defender.
I like
Exactly,
that. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm in. I'm in.
Let's do it.
It'll be a big difference from my sedan right now, but I'm in. And
it might not be great to get around New York, but it might be good. The size of it.
I actually would say it'd be great to get around New York because no one would get in my way. And then I had a ladder that I could just climb if I wanted to and make fun of, like get people out of my way.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Well, listen, Daniel, it's been a real pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you for all the wisdom. I think our listeners are really going to enjoy hearing the story. It's very motivating as well. So, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure as well hosting you on In-House, and we hope to continue our relationship.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. And I enjoyed the conversation as well. I could continue.
Well, we appreciate that. Thank you to Daniel. Thanks to everyone for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode, and we will catch you soon.
And thank you, Jenny.
He's over there in the background.
The In-House Podcast is an in-house production. The hosts of the show are co-founders Tucker Radecki and Rob Lubin. The executive producer is Ryan Radecki. Mixing, editing, and digital production courtesy of Ryan Radecki. This podcast is available on Spotify. Our episodes are also uploaded as videos at youtube.com/@InHouseInc.